Hi there, and welcome to Ian's Engage channel. I'm Ian. In a previous video I went through how I'd printed out the track plan and pinned it to my baseboard. In this video I'm going to begin laying the track on top of the track plan to see if what works in my head will work in reality. There's quite a bit to do even before I could get down to laying track, so let's go through the process. However, firstly, let me apologise for my voice, which is a bit croaky as I'm suffering from some sort of bug as I record this. Anyway, my first task was to spend some happy hours adding Fishplates to the Pico Streamline track, and I'm using the word happy quite wrongly in this sentence. Adding Fishplates to Engage track is probably the single most frustrating thing that I've come across since returning to the hobby, if not life in general. And that's saying something, considering I've secured solenoid point motors to the underside of Engage points. The little blighters were a law unto themselves, with some of them just refusing to slip onto the end of the rail, while others went on without any problem whatsoever. Unfortunately, there were more that didn't want to fit than did, and I must have discarded more than 2/3 of the things. Once I'd had enough of attempting to add rail joiners to the track, I had to drill holes into the sleepers, as I was planning on securing the track to the foam using long track pins from GaugeMaster. This ended up being an incredibly time-consuming activity and, like fitting the Fishplates, was done over a period of several days. In a previous video I explained that the Streamline track had part drill holes in some of the sleepers that required finishing through to the top of the sleeper. However, what I hadn't realised was that the GaugeMaster track pins were slightly thicker than the Pico pins, so even the set track required the holes to be enlarged. Also, the flexible track had no part drilled holes at all, which came as a complete shock to me. The job of drilling holes into the sleepers of flexible track turned out to be almost as frustrating as adding Fishplates. Well, about 3/4 as frustrating as adding Fishplates. I really do not like adding Fishplates. With all of this drilling, using the manual pin vise ended up almost crippling my already damaged wrist, as there were just so many holes to drill. So, this motivated me into purchasing a small USB-operated drill. However, although it would undoubtedly save my wrist from breakage, I struggled to make it work initially, as the drill bit kept slipping off the underside of the sleeper. After a bit of practice though, along with introducing plenty of light so I could see what I was doing, I managed to get the hang of it. In the end, using the USB-powered drill saved a whole bunch of time, so it was well worth the 12 quid outlay. So now that I had some track with track pinholes and Fishplates attached, I could finally get down to laying it. I decided to lay the track directly on top of the printed track plan, securing it with the aforementioned GaugeMaster track pins. The track pins wouldn't secure the track to the foam in the long term, but it would stop it from moving around too much, which is all I really needed at this point while I tested out the plan. This clip shows my progress at the end of day 1. My aim was to get the main loop set up so I could start running trains as soon as possible. However, it was slow going, with frequent breaks to swear at the futility of trying to connect the track together, especially where Streamline track met set track, even though they were both code 80. By the end of day 2, I'd progressed only a little further, but had at least installed my first ever piece of N-gauge flexible track between 2 other pieces of track, which, although only a small piece, I thought was an absolute triumph. Hurrah! Day 3, I was keen to have a go at fitting my first ever curved bit of N-gauge flexible track, and almost lost the will to live. The problem was that I'd chosen a section that contained a shallow S-bend, which was difficult to keep in place while it was being measured for the fit, despite being able to pin it. I had several of these types of curve, and the trouble this caused me made me begin to think that maybe my track plan needed some modification. Like they say, no battle plan ever survives first contact with the enemy, although I wasn't completely sure who the enemy was in this case. So, back to the drawing board, or Rail Modeler Pro, I went. So what you're seeing now is the plan that I had pinned to the baseboard. I've pointed out all of the areas where I've used short sections of flexible track to close the gaps in curves, and where I've used S-bends that in retrospect I should never have added to the plan. Now, This is the new track plan I conjured up after spending a couple of hours making modifications. To make the track easier to lay, I removed as many of the short sections of curved flexible track as possible and eventually removed all of the sections containing S-bends. I've also tried to make sure that both ends of any section of flexible track start on a straight. I then took up nearly all of the track I'd already laid, which left the layout looking like this, which was a bit disheartening, to be honest. However, the whole point of going through this exercise was to ensure I had something I could both build and operate, and both the short flexible curves and S-bends in the flexible track had found me out. So going back to the drawing board made sense, or at least it did to me. So that's where I'm going to leave things for the time being. It doesn't look like much for 3 days worth of work of track laying, I know, but we are where we are. This was a sort of 1 step forward, 2 step back sort of situation, but me from the future is currently working on part 2 of this video, and he tells me that things are going much better. Well, eventually. Anyway, let me know what you think. I can't be the only one to have struggled with short curved bits of flexible track, can I? What are your stories? Let me know. If you're a flexible track laying guru, do you have any hints or tips for temporarily laying short pieces of curved flexible track? Again, let me know. Alternatively, if you've got any general hints, tips, useful tools or techniques to pass on to a beginner in N-Gage modelling, or if you simply want to say hello, then please do so in the comment section. Anything and everything you've got to say will be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, thanks ever so much for watching. Hopefully I'll have another update containing better news sometime soon. Bye.